This is Dan Fornick with Player Profiler, and for my inaugural video, I'm going to walk through the top 10 offensive lines for the 2023 NFL season. Typically, we don't think of offensive line play as crucial to fantasy, given the points are scored by positional players, but understanding the offensive line will help you unlock the upside for your rosters and help you understand who to target to win your league. The number one, no one should be surprised, we're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles. Of their 4 returning starters, Jordan Mailata at left tackle, Lane Johnson right tackle, Landon Dickerson at left guard, and Jason Kelce at center. All 4 players were PFF top 15 ranked at their position. As a group, they were the number 1 pass blocking unit, the number 3 run blocking unit, and had the number 1 average overall PFF grade in 2022. As a collective unit, if we're looking at just their returning starters, we have a group that gave up 71 pressures and just 7 sacks on the season. Now, they did lose right guard Isaac Seumalo. He went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They also lost a really good depth tackle in Andre Dillard. Both of those guys went to new places in free agency, but 2022, they drafted Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska. He was supposed to be the center of the future, but they're just going to plug him right in and play at right guard, and really there probably won't be too much drop off. They also have pretty good depth. They used a 3rd round pick this year on Alabama's Tyler Steen. He was a left tackle, but he'll move inside and compete with Cam Jurgens, but he'll probably just be a guy who can play inside outside. And they also have some veteran experience with Jack Driscoll and Dennis Kelly, 2 guys who have gotten some playing time over their careers and are passable. You obviously don't want them in there, but if they're in there, they can give you good play. Number 2, the gap this year is razor thin. You have the Detroit Lions. They return 4 of their starters, Taylor Decker, Penei Sewell, Jonah Jackson, and Frank Ragnow. Sewell was a top 10 tackle last year. Ragnow was a top 5 center, but this unit is passable at pass blocking. They're okay, but they were a number 4 average run blocking unit and had the number 4 overall grade on PFF last year. Graham Glasgow is coming over from the Denver Broncos. He played center for them last year. When Lloyd Cushenberry got hurt, he will probably plug in at right guard throughout preseason. That's where he's been. They did lose a depth piece in Evan Brown in free agency. He played center and guard for them last year, but they do have okay depth. Halapoulivaati Vaitai, he has been the right guard. He was their right guard in 2021, but he's struggled with injuries and missed all of last season. They also have Jermaine Ifedi to play backup tackle. He's an average NFL starter. He's not someone you want for sustained stretches, but he can go in case of small injuries. Number 3, you have the Baltimore Ravens, and a lot of this hinges on the availability of Ronnie Stanley. He's missed a lot of the last 3 years due to ankle injuries, but in his stead, they've been able to use injuries over the years to kind of develop really, really good depth. And so that pushes them up the rankings because they have a lot of guys who have cut their teeth in the NFL, have shown they can play at the NFL level. And so if there's any injuries, you have guys you can plug in. They were last year's number 11 pass blocking unit, number 6 run blocking. They had PFF's average number 8 overall grade. Tyler Linderbaum came right in out of Iowa as a center. He finished as the center 6 despite having short arms. Technique wins. If you have good technique, you could get away with not being as big or as fast as other guys. Their depth is exceptional. They have Patrick McCarry, who played a lot of left tackle last year because of Ronnie Stanley's injury. They brought in Sam Mustipher to back up Linderbaum. He's not a great center, but he can get the job done. And they also have a guy in Ben Cleveland who has NFL experience. They also took and have 2 kind of upside prospects. Daniel Falele, who is absolutely massive. He was drafted out of Minnesota a couple years ago as a developmental guy. And Malasala Omave Laulu. He was a 2023 6th round pick out of Oregon. He's probably more of a run defender. As of right now, it seems like he's not going to get the starting job, but he is a guy who they will use. He's more of a run grader, but at the end of the day, they want to pass more this year, so he's probably going to be more of a depth piece. With number 4, you have the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland is bringing back all 5 of their starting linemen, and one of the things we like about that is the continuity. With offensive line, continuity is key. You've got guys, everyone needs to know everyone else's assignment so that you can execute at the highest level possible. The reason why they're not higher on this list, despite the continuity, is because last year, Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills, their starting tackles, kind of struggled. They weren't their usual dominant self. They allowed a combined 54 pressures in 2022. They also have exceptional interior play. Joel Bitonio was the number 2 guard in PFF. Ethan Pachick was the number 3 center. He's had had some injury history. They don't really have anyone behind him, but if he's healthy, he's shown that in this system, or at least surrounded by the right guys, he can be really good. They did lose some interior pieces. They lost Hajate Froholt as he went to the Arizona Cardinals, but they did take a 4th-round pick, DeJuan Jones, who is absolutely massive. I actually coached against him in high school. He is terrifying, but he's a good athlete, struggles a little bit with speed, but what would you expect from 6'8" and 370 pounds? Number 5, this unit last year was absolutely surprising. It's the Atlanta Falcons. They have Caleb McGarry, who is the number 4 tackle, according to PFF. They have Jake Matthews, number 16 tackle. Chris Lindstrom was the number 1 guard, and Drew Dahlman was the number 14 center. They also drafted in the 2nd round Matthew Bergeron, who played tackle at Syracuse. He was a 3-year starter at tackle, moved between left and right, but he's known for having an 80.8 PFF run grade in his final season, which we know Atlanta wants to run the ball, so he should plug right into the left guard. They were the number 1 run blocking unit and the number 2 overall unit, according to PFF last year. They fall into the top 5, but the reason why they can't be top 3 is because their depth is not very good. Matt Hennessy, who was their longtime left guard, someone they were counting on for depth, he has just been put on the IR in preseason due to a knee injury, leaving them with just Jalen Mayfield to back up inside and outside, and that's just never a good situation. Offensive line, you got a chance to get hurt, people fall on your ankles, and they just don't have the depth if their guys go down. Number 6, we're hoping that Rashawn Slater can lead this unit a bit higher, but as of now, they're number 6. If you would have taken Rashawn Slater's 2022 season, he would have finished as the tackle number 8 in PFF's grading. He allowed just 3 pressures on 113 passing downs in 2022 before he tore his bicep. Now, outside of him, you've got some struggles. They're bringing back Trey Pipkins to be the right tackle. He's been okay. He's average, but he gives up a lot of pressure. Jamari Salyer, who was the left tackle who filled in with Slater, is going to plug into their right guard. Zion Johnson had an adequate rookie season, and the arrow seems to be pointing up. And then you know what you're getting with Corey Lindsley at center. He's steady. He's reliable. He's not going to give up too much. He's kind of the foundation of this offensive line on the inside. Really, what this team needs is they need Trey Pipkins and Zion Johnson to develop. These two accounted for 44% of their team's pressures in 2022, and that needs to change, especially if the Chargers are going to be going up tempo with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. Number 7, we have the Green Bay Packers. The key to the Packers, David Bakhtiari, he's kind of been a health risk the last few years. He missed a lot of time last year, but when he played, he was still graded out as the OT12 on PFF. Elgton Jenkins was coming off an ACL injury, but when he was healthy, he finished as the guard 12. And then around them, you kind of have a lot of question marks, but one thing I really like about this unit is they had 7 different offensive linemen who played at least 450 snaps last year. They were a really strong pass blocking unit, which typically with your backups, you expect them to be road graders. You don't expect them to pass pro well, but they have a lot of good athletes along the line. And none of their offensive linemen, all 7 who played at least 450 snaps, allowed more than 28 pressures or 5 sacks. They have good depth in Yash Neiman, Royce Newman, and Sean Ryan. 2 of these guys, Neiman and Newman, played a lot last year. They have experience. If Bakhtiari can't stay healthy, if any of the interior guys struggle with health, they can plug these guys in and know what they're going to get. Number 8, you're hoping that for the Cowboys, they get health out of Tyron Smith. If Tyron Smith is healthy, this is probably a top 5 unit. If Tyron Smith can't stay on the field, which over the last handful of years has been the case, you just don't really know what you're going to get. Terrence Steele was a solid right tackle. They brought him back on a free agent tender, so he'll be the right tackle again. He finished as tackle 23 last year. Tyler Smith, who was a developmental player they took out of college in the 1st round, he was supposed to be the left guard of the future, but they ended up moving him out to tackle, and he played quite well last year. He gave up pressure on just 6.2% of his pass blocking snaps, 623, and ultimately he's a solid player. Zach Martin is the stalwart of this line. He was last year's guard 9. They paid him handsomely this offseason after a holdout. The biggest concern I have with this unit is the depth. They have Josh Ball on the inside. They did a good job bringing in Chuma Edoga in free agency, but he has a knee injury. We haven't really gotten much clarity, but he was carted off the field in a practice, and it seems significant enough that the team seems to be worried about their depth. For number 9, we're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs made a curious decision this offseason. They moved on from both of their starting tackles. Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley left in free agency, and they brought in Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith. On the surface, this is going to be a major downgrade. Jawan Taylor was the tackle 65 last year. Donovan Smith was the tackle 66. These two players on their respective teams combined to give up 47 pressures and 11 sacks last year. But the inside of this offensive line is absolutely just stellar. Joe Thuney is the guard 5 in PFF grade last year. Trey Smith was guard 12. He regressed a little bit as a pass blocker, but his run game work was still exceptional. And then Creed Humphrey finished as your number 1 center, according to PFF's grades. We have a weird mix. Lucas Niang has been around for a while for them. He will be the backup right tackle. They're going to let Jawan Taylor go. They paid him to be their right tackle. Nick Allegretti is going to be their interior guard center backup. And then they have 2 really interesting developmental prospects behind them. Prince Tega Wanogo, who they drafted 2 years ago. And this past year in the 3rd round, they took Wanya Morris out of Oklahoma. Morris always struggled with health while he was at Oklahoma, but ultimately he was a 5-star recruit. And if they can get him healthy and give him time, he may be someone who factors in down the road. And then finally, our number 10 offensive line. I know I said continuity was key, but this team, if you're going to spend money, spend it on the best players at the positions. It's the Denver Broncos. Garrett Bowles is returning. He missed a lot of time last year, but if you take his 2022 grades, he would have been the tackle 21. Mike McGlinchey is their big new right tackle acquisition. Took a step back a little bit last year, but he'll have Quinn Miners, who was the OG6, according to PFF. And then they replaced longtime left guard Dalton Risner with Ben Powers. And they're hoping that Lloyd Cushenberry at center can stay healthy. He had a solid rookie year, but struggled with injuries last year. This team flipped over their entire offensive line. They lost Dalton Risner in free agency. They let Billy Turner walk, their tackle, Graham Glasgow, who was their fill-in center last year, and Calvin Anderson, who got some run at tackle. All of those guys are gone, but they still retain Cam Fleming, who is the 29th ranked tackle according to PFF last year, and Kyle Fuller they brought in from Seattle, not the cornerback. He's a guard. Those are both experienced veterans who they can plug and play along the offensive line and hope for the best. So these are my top 10 offensive lines heading into 2023. If you want more information, make sure to check out my article on Player Profiler along with any player metrics or advanced stats that you need, and have a great day.